So we'll get into some squashing and stretching on Wednesday. Before I forget, I want you guys to check out another series on LinkedIn Learning for Wednesday. So this one is After Effects CC 2018 Essential Training, motion graphics. So I'll put a link. Did it work before when I put the link? Like once you logged in, it took you to the right spot? Because I wasn't able to do that previously with Linda, but now it seems to work like that worked last time. Okay, well, I'll put the link up. But if not, write that name down so you got it there. I just want you guys to look at Intro 1 and 2. You don't need to watch the whole series right now. So just Intro 1 and 2. Because there's probably another one, CC Essential Training, but this one is CC Motion Graphics Essential Training. So that's for Wednesday, okay? So that's going to be, especially number 2 here, is going to be, like another version of a lot of what we're working on right now. I think that'll help, seeing another take on keyframing, and that'll be good, good for everybody there. Everybody with me? Okay. So let's take the mass thing and apply it to some bouncing. That also happened. Some of you guys were, when you go to select and move, we're double clicking, and then see how the icon changes? This gets the tiny squares instead of the big squares. That's not what you want. You want the big squares. That's moving the shape on the layer. We want to just move the layer. Cool. So we did this in the homework, just mocking up bounces, right? You got a bouncing ball, but we want to have heavy bouncing ball and light bouncing ball, right? And so we're not going to worry too much about making it physically accurate, right? Where there's the whole issue of gravity acts on everything at the same rate, right? But only in a vacuum. You have to deal with air resistance otherwise. But here, let's do the heavy one first. And when I'm blocking out this kind of bounce, I'm going to have it start falling, and then make sure that every bounce I have a keyframe at the bottom and the top. And that allows me to set that up in that way. So let's go to position, and so I can go here, and then hold down Shift to make sure I make impact. And then move. And this is going to be the heavy one. And so the good rule of thumb that seems to get people into the pretty close is like 1/5. So the next bounce would be 1/5 as high as the previous altitude, right? For heavy, that's a pretty good starting formula. And so the next one, I'd look at this and kind of eyeball it, kind of about 1/5. So a little less than a quarter, like 1/5 back up, right? And then it needs to go back down. So I could either drag it back down again, or grab this keyframe, copy, and paste, and put it back there. That way I know the keyframes here are all the exact same. And I'm sure you ran into this with the bouncing ball homework. Ideally, your bounce times should be symmetrical within the bounce, right? So the way up takes pretty much as much time as the way down. And so then we'll have it decrease in time a little bit, right? So each bounce gets a little bit shorter. And this one should be way less distance. And then back down. We can copy and paste this one again. There we go. All right, let's see what we have here. So I've got 3. Okay, way too long based on what we have here. And even before we start tuning anything, I feel like I need to compress the whole thing. So I'm going to go back to the dope sheet view here. And this is a really good shortcut. So when I have a bunch of keyframes like this and I want to keep the relationship between them temporarily, but I want to smush it, it needs to take less time, or I could expand it. It needs to take way more time. If you hold down, select all of them, and hold down Alt. So that takes it, and see what's happening here? I'm retiming this. So it takes this thing and smushes it down for as long as I drag it. Right? So now it keeps the relationships and the coordinates, but now it's just going to take way less time. So if we look at this again now. Everybody with me there? So you have to, when you're doing this, you need to make sure that you grab the end. You can do it in the other direction too. You could grab the beginning and smush it that way. But it needs to be the end, one of the ends of the sequences. And then hold down Alt and then drag it. Everybody with me there? Okay. However, this can present some issues. For instance, if we zoom in a bunch now, depending on the relationship between the keyframes when they were created, if you zoom in, you can end up with a situation like this. Okay? See how this keyframe is like not on this frame? It's not on that frame? In some instances, this would be okay. In the instance of the bouncing ball, it's probably not a great idea because I prefer to have the ball land on the ground on an actual frame, not in between frames, right? First of all, it's not going to get drawn, right, actually on the ground. A lot of times it's fast enough that it's fairly subtle, but just be aware, when you use that Alt drag, it smushes them, but it does not force them. And so sometimes you need to zoom in and just sort of nudge them so that they are on a frame. Move them a little bit. There's no mask command for that, and I've looked for it a couple times. If anyone finds that, like for smushing frames over to the right keyframe or right frame, essentially quantizing them, let me know, because I have not discovered that. Cool, we're better. That timing looks better-ish. What am I using to zoom in and out? Plus minus. Plus minus zooms in and out in time. Shift plus minus, or sorry, Control plus minus zooms out in space. Right, so seeing more of the view. Cool, let's get this relatively in place. So I'm going to separate dimensions again and focus on my Y keyframes. Right, so just like in the homework, as far as dragging this around, same thing here. If this one wasn't Bezier, there we go, to round that out. Same thing there, and same thing there. And taking longer to accelerate into that first bounce. In fact, I should probably pick up, take quite as long on this first one, and I'm going to smush these bounces. So I could grab just these, and you can do the same thing here as far as moving these in. And I might grab one more, just one more little blip, just to communicate heavy. But as far as the distance and the timing, maybe even faster here. You know, we want to go for something like bowling ball, right? If I dropped a bowling ball from right here onto the floor, it would bounce a little bit, you know, and just sort of skip on the ground. And then the next one, over here, we want to do more like ping pong ball, but the same size, right? A bowling ball sized ping pong ball that would bounce more, right? Anybody watch tennis, right? You can buy those novelty sized, like basketball sized tennis balls for people to sign. I want to see them actually play tennis with those because I think that would be fun. But that's what we're going for. We want to make the balls the same size, but just communicate their mass via the bouncing. So I've got the heavy in place. And on the light, I'm going to bounce back up further, which means that the timing will also be extended, right? So it's going to take longer and bounce back up. For the lighter one, I've usually used like maybe half or a little over half as far as the formula for how far up it goes, just as the comparison. So go ahead and save the one you're at and go ahead and give this a shot with the heavy. Remember, just block it out first and get the general timing, and then if you need to, use that alt drag.
Is there going to be open lab tomorrow?
I don't know. John is going to tell me in a minute here when he comes back.
Okay.